Yeah, that way I can send it to Father Hans. Is it? Oh yeah, it looks like it's recording. Do you guys see that?
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay. Okay, so I was writing down notes from the last video and some of the ideas that were thrown out. I know Randy said he probably wasn't going to make it too. So um, some of these ideas that we had put out, I started putting out the outline of a meeting. Before we really start talking about each of these, I want to ask you, Sayedna, we had talked at length during the watermelon portion of the meeting about the importance of being diplomatic and delicate in the way that we word things, especially with the clergy. And then you had agreed, I rewatched the video earlier today, and you had said that, you were comfortable addressing the clergy that attend the meeting. So there's two things. First, you said that you would send an email to the clergy, not inviting them because they're a part of Antiochian Men and they're always invited, but maybe reminding them that they're invited to join. I don't know, Sayed, if you've had a chance to reach out to the clergy yet on email about it.
I will tomorrow.
Okay. That'll be good because I think Bert could also send out a reminder as well, and that's good timing. But as far as addressing the clergy, we want to be very delicate about how we position, the men as guides and as assisting the priest. And the way that was worded, I wanted to be very clear in the video. That's why I rewatched it. We had talked about using, instead of mentors, guides that are acting under the direction of the priest. And I thought it's most appropriate, Sayedna, if you would be willing to kind of address the clergy. Of course, the leaders of the Amen chapters will be there too, but especially, I think coming from you as our bishop to the clergy, telling them the real intention is to help them.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And the question that I have for you then is, would it be better for you to do that at the very beginning of the meeting, or would you rather talk about some of the success stories, get involvement from the other chapter leaders first before you do that?
I think at the beginning would be best.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be a good way, actually, now that I think of it, to flow from, this is the intention, is to help you out, to have guides in your church that are more experienced men to help the younger, but are really those guides to the younger that are acting under the direction of the priest, who is the ultimate spiritual mentor. I'll leave it to you how you want to word that. But when you address the clergy and present it in that way, I think it'll be really good to hear from you, Sayedna, to also just reiterate, the ultimate goal is to become like God. The focus of Antiochian Men is that, but then also, what does it look like when the rubber hits the road? Practically, the men are in the parish, and there's a lot of men that have a lot of skills and talents. We know the clergy. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Sayedna, but however you want to address it.
Yeah, what you're saying is great. That is exactly what I have in mind.
Okay. So that'll be great. And I think hearing from you right off the bat, you'll have the attention of everyone, hopefully all the clergy, but also the leaders that are there. And then I think that's a great segue to go into those success stories. So Bert, you had said that you I think you reached out to Mark and Michael Lieberman.
Yes.
And they said they would be able to join. So we can go right into them sharing their stories that we put in the newsletter. And if they share it, Bert, I can share my screen and put the pictures up from each of those while they're talking.
Right. I think that'll help us stimulate some conversation and give some guys ideas too.
Yeah. And having those success stories highlighted, I think, will maybe encourage others to send in what their church is doing. I sent in those pictures of our Antiochian men's group helping with a move. We actually did it 2 more times. And there was one guy that actually helped with all 3 moves. So I was thinking of inviting him to talk about that. If I can swing it, Bert, I might have a 3rd one to just talk and present from our church. It's as simple as just the men showing up to help somebody move, but it's still something. It's meeting the needs of a parish, and that is a very real need. And it's Antiochian men showing up to lift heavy boxes. I mean, honestly, one of them was my house, and I kind of felt guilty even asking for it, but my priest said, go ahead and ask anyway. there's no conflict of interest. I felt a little bad asking, but I think it'll be good to have Bishop Nicholas talking to the clergy about the whole purpose is to help them. And then we have these stories from Mark, from Michael, and then there's this guy, Philip, who was at all three of the moves that could even talk about, helping out. The first case was a great example where it's a single older lady that didn't have anybody else to help her. And these are the practical examples of Antiochian men in action. And it's going to look different from parish to parish. And I think all three examples are different enough where it gives you a good flavor of the different ways the men, organize to meet the needs of each parish, right?
Yeah. Also, I think highlighting the fact that these projects like this give the men opportunities to bond together,
Yeah.
In a brotherhood tighter than they would if just meeting for coffee hour and, doing some stuff, being a church anyways, but that these are bonding opportunities. And also to bring young guys into the Amen group, get them active too.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that, Bert, because you said two things I want to highlight. First, the fellowship part is very important, and I think it's more important now than ever because everyone's feeling the stress of this pandemic and not being able to do things. I wanted to share, after liturgy this past Sunday, it was really sad because it was such a cold day and we can't have coffee hour inside. So the majority of people had to just leave after church. There was no fellowship. And there's a lot of people that really look forward to that part after you celebrate the divine liturgy together. You all gather, you have some snacks, some coffee, and you have fellowship time. And that is now, with the weather getting colder, harder to do. It's even harder. So if we can organize in a way where we're being smart using masks like we did when we were helping locally with moving, everybody was wearing masks. At least there was a brotherhood atmosphere because we were all in that together to help the lady. And I think those fellowship opportunities are more needed now than ever. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts, but I think that would also help to bring in some of the young men. That was another thing mentioned in the last meeting, was how to get the young men involved. Bryce, you brought that up and said you'd really like to do more of that. You cited a couple examples of even your roommate that has started going to our church here locally. Bryce, I don't know if what I'm saying is resonating with you about the fellowship piece, but it feels like as a young man yourself, maybe you could speak to this better than any of us.
Yeah, it's I guess I'm thinking from my own perspective here because Philip, for example, he is at our parish. He's I think a year older than me, but he's married. He's still a young man. He's still going through this stuff. But I guess when I think about the young men, I think about guys who aren't married. They may be by themselves. They may be living without their families, that sort of thing. And like in my case, the parish is one of the only things that I have. And especially like this time of year, like a lot of states, and I haven't really seen this in the South, especially in Florida, like there hasn't been a whole lot of, lockdown talk. You're not losing all of your freedom again. But I guess what I'm trying to say is trying to relate to young guys and make sure they are heard and they're known within the parish because they play a role in the parish just like everybody else does, and trying to build on their strengths and keep them involved with things. Because I've felt myself slip, and I think that's mostly on me. But at the same time, I really think they just want to know who they're supposed to be, and that's what we've been trying to get at, for almost 2 years now, is to be like Christ and to be a Christian or Orthodox Christian man trying to find your way. And especially like the young single guys are who I'm trying to think about. I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about guys who are like me and I guess what they need. So yeah, just whatever fellowship thing that can be done at the local level and whatever people are doing, because I know parishes are doing things. I know there's an active men's group at St. Elias in Atlanta. I know those guys are pretty active, but yeah, I guess that's just what I'm thinking about. I don't know if any of that makes any sense, but
no, it does. Those are great thoughts. As you were talking, Bryce, it made me think a lot about, Father Hans has talked so much about when you talk about the younger men trying to figure out who they're supposed to be. One of the things Father Hans says, he said multiple times, even in our Ask Father Hans videos, is surround yourselves with other men. And that really takes place in a fellowship environment. You know, surround yourself with good men from the church, older, wiser people that can help point you in the right direction. So that's speaking to being close to the guides that are functioning under direction of the priests, which is what we talk about at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
I think that fellowship piece is really important, though. And as we talk through these success stories, we should really highlight the importance of finding ways, because you're right, churches are getting creative. It's not like everything is completely on lockdown. We have ways we can do things as long as we're following local guidelines, and we have to stress that. We can't tell people, you know, don't wear masks and be close to each other. We have to follow local guidelines. Right. But that fellowship piece is so important, and I feel like a lot of people are really hurting not having that like they used to, even in coffee hours.
Yeah, that's I think that's the crushing thing about it. What were you gonna say?
Michael, I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say I agree with you guys. What if we kind of take it a step further? How do people learn by somebody telling you something? It's a level of learning versus showing them doing, right? So what if we say fellowship by action? Like you mentioned, you had the men in your church that helped somebody move. You're talking about the men getting together. And I'm thinking maybe like I'm thinking of some of the younger men in our church. They don't just want to sit around the table and chit chat, right? That's fellowship, but that their span of attention nowadays for younger generation is not there. So what if they got together and did something? So it's fellowship by action. And when you're acting, you're showing somebody, right? You're teaching them in a different way. It's not using words.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you don't do as I say, but do what I do. Like there's a different vision there. So I like the concept of what you guys are saying of focusing on fellowship, but at the same time, it's maybe we could take it a step further. And it's like the fellowship of getting together, but doing something. You mentioned it earlier. Like, so it's fellowship by action. If they can maybe once a quarter, that an idea is that the men get together and do something.
Yeah,
right?
The action
Whatever
part,
it is.
the fellowship will come. And I
Right.
think, you know, Bishop Nicholas has said this so well, with a spiritual focus that will naturally follow. If you're focused on spiritual things, if you're focused on God, and you gather together, you know, that fellowship is going to be very natural, and it's going to be authentic and genuine. So I think you're right. I love what you said, though. Fellowship by action, is that what you called it? I like that.
It's the phrase I used. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
you know, we talk
basically,
about
it's doing something. It's giving the men a
Yep.
project, right?
Well, correct.
So maybe Sayedna, you tell me what you think, but when you're addressing the clergy, this might be something you want to even maybe tease out there and say, men need projects. There are a lot of men in your church that would be willing to help with a lot of things. You know, go to them, because while they're acting, right, focusing on what that project is, they're going to have fellowship with each other, and that's so needed right now. Sayedna, I don't know if you bring that up, or if we do it through the success stories, but I think that's a really good way, is to say, give the men something to do, and that fellowship will happen naturally.
Correct.
Yeah. We have to approach it from two starting points. There are men who are spiritual, and there are men who are not spiritual, just like everything else. The men who are spiritual, we can start with a spiritual activity, which will lead to more fellowship. But the men who are not spiritual, we can start with an activity which will lead to spirituality. So we need both a two-pronged attack in order to attract both types of men.
Yeah.
And you put them together and they end up doing both, right?
Exactly.
And that creates the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where the balance comes, is when you have a little bit from each. You don't have anyone on the far extreme getting all heady and orthodox theology instructor wannabe, or someone that is only concerned about sports and doesn't want to talk about anything but that. You have a little bit of a balance when you have a mix of people. So yeah, I think we need to remind people of that, because I don't know how to say this, guys, but with this whole COVID situation, I feel like people have unlearned how to be social with each other. I mean, it's like we have to be taught again the fundamentals of good fellowship,
Yes.
because it's like if you stop doing something, you fall out of practice. And it's the same thing with social interaction. And I don't know, I think that it's even more important now that we just remind people about these kinds of things. I don't know. We'll follow your lead, Sayed. No, when you address the clergy and the leaders, if you want to mention something to this effect, if not, we can bring it up later in the meeting. But I think it's important that we talk about this, because, you know, I think men were already lonely before the pandemic. The biggest piece of feedback we were getting is men are feeling very lonely. This has only compounded that and increased it.
You know, one time I was watching the Science Channel, and they were talking about World War II and how the British government created under London a shelter. It's about 60, 70 feet underground shelter. And then after they finished it, they decided not to use it. Why? They said they were afraid that people will go into deep shelter and they will lose their spirit to fight. We are now in deep shelter, forced deep shelter. And we are losing our spirit to fight. And I'm not talking about physical fight, about spiritual fight, about wanting to continue our fellowship, wanting to continue everything that we used to have. We're losing our will without recognizing it. So we have to find ways to get out from under this deep shelter once we can, but we have to prepare for that. It's going to be an uphill battle. If you think that before the COVID-19, some people are lethargic and they don't want to be active, after this pandemic, it's going to be worse. Because we are in a forced deep shelter.
Yeah. Yeah,
that is great.
Sorry, go ahead, Bert.
That is a great example.
Yeah,
because personally, I can feel the drag, you know, happening, and then Father Yuri has been talking a lot about how people are having a hard time staying on track spiritually with their prayer life and reading, and you know, I mean, our live streaming attendance has dropped off. There's people that aren't watching live streaming anymore. So it is a real concern in our parish, and I'm sure it's like that everywhere.
Yeah, it's in every parish, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
People are feeling blah. They don't care, and I don't blame them. It's been 9 months. That's the deepest shelter we've ever been. It's going to be very difficult when people are required to go back to their jobs. There are going to be big problems. People might get fired because of that. They don't want to go. They got used to being at home.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're saying, is so true. It's very profound. I've felt exactly what you're talking about. I know, Bryce, you and I have talked about this. I feel like I've been in deep shelter.
Yeah.
And it's not that I want to be, you know, not being in liturgy and not having a full choir. I was having a hard time this past Sunday getting those thoughts out of my head about why can't we have a full choir? I miss being in the choir. I miss singing. I miss having more than just 2 chanters in the church.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it affected me. It affected me during the service where it was distracting me from worship. So what you're saying is exactly right. I think we have to also help. I think we should help the Amen leadership understand this, because you're right. It's going to be an uphill battle. We're not out of it yet either. It hasn't ended yet.
I don't think it'll end until July, August.
That's over a year basically going through this. And
Yeah,
another full Lent and Pascha.
yeah, yeah.
Hard
So-
times create strong men. At least that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I
Well-
think, you know,
The news that I've just received yesterday is that the vaccine is already being distributed to pharmacies.
Yeah.
But it cannot be used until the 11th. The 10th is going to be approved by the FDA, and on the 11th, pharmacies will be ready. The issue is that, do people want to get vaccines? Do they trust the vaccine? And a mistrust of the vaccine is growing. Do we trust it? Is it going to be good for us? Does it have side effects? Is it going to cause issues? The CEO of Moderna, one of the two companies, was interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and he said, this is the first programmable vaccine. What is that? What is programmable vaccine? He said, if there is another virus in a couple of months, we can reprogram the vaccine and send it out again. We don't have to recreate the vaccine from scratch. Which brings up the point, can you reprogram it in my body after you give it to me? That is really a concerning point.
yeah, you know, I have on here on the agenda, I've been hoping that we could have Father Hans kind of speak to everybody at the end of the meeting. And Bishop Nicholas, I think what you said about your analogy, your World War II analogy, I think is a great topic for maybe Father Hans to speak about with your blessing. If you'd be willing, it would be great to get a little bit of a pep talk from him and some encouragement from the Antiochian Men's spiritual advisor on this topic of, it's really being vigilant, but it's also just being aware, because I think this is happening. You tell me, Sayedna, if you agree. I think this is all happening to us and we don't even realize the effect it's having.
Absolutely.
So I think having Father Hans, if you'd be willing to let him use the analogy that you used and to speak about maybe vigilance. You know, vigilance is one of our 4 core values, and what that looks like in a pandemic. And after 9 months, as you said, it takes being aware of what is happening. And I think a lot of people have been kind of lulled into this apathy. It's really akadia. It's like you're being hammered underground. I'm picturing that analogy in World War II, and you have all these bombs dropping. You don't want to come out.
That's right.
And I think maybe Father Hans, of all the people that I've heard talk, could really help maybe to improve morale, to get some kind of a positive, especially to end the meeting on a positive note, to say, look, at some point we have to make a choice. You know, there's nothing stopping me, for example, for calling every man in our church to just check up on them to see how they're doing. That's something that all of us could be doing. I don't know how many of us are doing it, because it takes a little bit of extra effort, and we weren't used to doing it before because we didn't have to. We would just see them in church.
I think we need some kind of call to action. Honesty, like some kind of
I
rally.
do this. Oops, sorry.
It's okay.
I do this on a regular basis at all times. I have a checklist of people I add to and remove from as they get better. But I send them messages if I don't hear from them at all times, even before the pandemic. So it's good if we all do that.
Yeah. And that's another way the men can help the priest. Because
Mhm.
if they find out somebody lost their job, somebody caught COVID-19, they can tell the priest. The priest may not be aware of it.
Yeah.
So I think it would be good to hear from Father Hans on that topic, but also just to help us to wake up and to realize what's happening around us and how it's affecting us. Because again, I don't think we're seeing it. I think I don't even see it, how it's affecting me. It takes somebody else to point it out. That's the whole point.
See, again, we can use the frog example.
Yes.
Have you heard of that frog example?
In the boiling pot, when you put the frog in the pot. Yes.
Exactly. See, if the pot is boiling and you put a frog in it, it'll jump out. But if you put the frog in the pot and then you increase the temperature little by little, which is what's been happening to us, then the frog doesn't feel it. It gets boiled and doesn't feel the temperature. And that's exactly what's happening to us for the past 9 months.
Yeah, it's been a slow increase in temperature ever since March.
Yeah. I remember when the first shutdown was, shelter in place, it was for like 3-4 weeks and we're done and we're going to leave, we're going to get out.
Flatten the curve.
Yeah, it was wishful thinking. That's right. I was hopeful I'd be back in the office in a couple of weeks.
See, nobody understood this virus. So everybody thought, man, maybe 3-4 weeks will be fine. But it turned out to be much longer. And it hasn't ended.
Well, Sayedna, you tell me, based on the agenda that I have on the screen here, what we've already discussed. Is there anything else you think we need to add to the meeting?
We need to inject a sense of positive attitude so that they go back to their churches and be contagious. Be positive, not COVID positive, but positive.
Okay.
And that will be contagious.
Well, I enjoy motivational speaking, so I can do my part. I know, Sayedna, you'll start the meeting. So if you can start the positivity and I can maybe add on to it in the middle part of the meeting between success stories. And then Father Hans can bring us home at the end with a pep talk.
Sure. Can we get, just 1 second. Can we get some of the local presidents to speak up? Is that part of the examples?
Well, I'm not sure if Bert, are those, I don't know if they're the presidents of their chapters. I don't think Mark is. What about Michael?
I think Michael's president of his.
Okay, so that's one of them.
Yeah, they were both there at the last leadership meeting too.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Mark represented St. Ignatius. So
Yeah.
we have two. We could potentially try to add one or two more, Sayedna.
Okay, that's good. That's good. The other thing I was, before I forget, have we started calling all the churches?
Yeah, that was the other thing I wanted to ask Bert. Did you send that list out yet on the ones that didn't attend last time?
No, I did not. I got I updated the mailing list for our Ahmed leaders that we've got, but I did not create the inverse list yet.
Okay, the inverse list.
Ones who did not attend.
Yeah, in the last meeting, we talked about splitting up the churches for the ones that didn't attend and calling among the board. Why don't you just send that to me, Elias, Bryce, and then yourself could handle that of the churches that didn't attend. But
Right.
I was also going to reach out personally to each of the leaders that attended last time to make sure that they attend next week as well. Now that I'm finally moved into my house, I have some more time. I have more time on my hands where I can actually work the phones a little bit. I was planning on starting that tomorrow. And if somebody from that attended the last meeting can't attend next week, I was going to ask them to have somebody else from their church attend, so we don't have a dip in attendance.
Right.
And I think if I reach out individually through email or by calling, in most cases, I have their phone number. If it's not already, you know, that registration that you filled out, I still have that. Is that still an active Google Doc? Or on
Oh yeah,
Google
the
Drive?
last time we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's still there.
Okay, because that's what I was going to use, and I was just going to tomorrow start reaching out to confirm that each one of them was going to come next week, and again ask them if they're not, to assign somebody or to ask somebody from their church to attend in their place. But yeah, if you can send that inverse list sometime in the next 24 hours, Bert, we could assign, you know, 2 or 3 churches per board member.
Right.
Just reach out and ask them. And as you know, Sayedna said this in the last meeting, it's not enough to just leave a message for a priest, because it's not good to just leave the voicemail. We have to speak to them on the phone. In some cases, Bert, I would call the church office, and you know, the church has a phone number, and sometimes you'll get a secretary if it's a church that has one, and that might even be a better way in some cases to get the priest on the phone.
But
Yeah.
Michael, the secretaries are not going to be there.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that. The last time I called churches, they were, but like
I
in
would
Memphis, I
call-
was thinking of Memphis, for example.
I would call the priest on his cell phone, and I would, if he doesn't answer, leave a message and text him.
Okay.
I want to speak with him
Yeah.
regarding the meeting.
And if we don't hear back in a few days, we call again.
Yeah, and you can put in the message, Bishop Nicholas asked me to call you.
Right.
Yeah, that should help.
Yeah, we I've noticed. I mean, we've really been pushing in the emails. We've been pushing the leadership band group, but we've only had about 7 or 8 men respond so far.
Yeah, that's another reason I wanted to reach out individually, is try to get them on the phone or email them personally and ask them to join ahead of the meeting if they haven't yet. So I'm going to start working on that tomorrow to reach out to the ones that already joined the last meeting to make sure they're on for the next one. And then Bishop Nicholas said he's going to send an email tomorrow to the clergy. So
Yes.
that'll cover the clergy as well. So actually, Bert, if Sayedna is doing an email tomorrow to the clergy, could you send your email on Thursday or Friday?
Yes,
That'll give, what is today? Is today Tuesday?
today's Tuesday.
See, this whole COVID has screwed up everything. I don't even know what day it is. So today's Tuesday. If he sends his email Wednesday, let's send ours Thursday or Friday. So it's in between his and the newsletter.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, I think we're all set then. I'm looking forward to doing the meeting. I think, again, the fellowship piece is important, even among the leaders, as we've been talking about and Sayedna has mentioned. It's important that we all have that fellowship together during the meetings and even between meetings. That's what we want to encourage with this new band group. And during the meeting, that's one of the things I'll add to the agenda, is making sure that all the leaders join that band group if they haven't already. But I'm going to be reaching out to them individually, and hopefully a lot more will join over the next few days. Again, now that this move is over and I'm in my new house, I can kind of take my time unpacking. Before the move, there was a deadline. I had to be out, so it was a little bit more of a sense of urgency, and I didn't have as much time. But I know how important this is, and I want to do my part to help follow up. So I'll start calling the leaders that I know personally and the ones that, you know, attended the meeting the last time, so we can make sure we get hopefully as many churches represented as possible. One quick thing, Elias and Bishop Nicholas, would you be willing to stay on a little bit longer? I wanted to ask for your help with something.
Sure.
Elias, I won't need too much time, just a few minutes.
No worries. That's
Okay.
fine.
Anything else before we end this meeting?
That's it.
Oh,
Bert,
this is a watermelon moment, huh, Michael?
Yes, it's a watermelon.
Sorry. Sorry.
We need, hopefully we can get through a meeting without a watermelon, but maybe everyone needs at least one watermelon.
yeah. Bert, if you can put in the subject of the email,
Right.
something tantalizing. So
Okay.
they open the email, because I've talked to some people and I've said, have you been receiving the email from Dancy? And some of them said, yeah, but I've been ignoring them.
Yeah, I know. Getting them to open the email. We only have like a 40% open rate on our emails that we send out.
And 40% is actually pretty good if you look at most
is good.
marketing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you can change the subject in the email, put something tantalizing in there to draw them in to open the email.
I know exactly what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Bishop Nicholas wants you.
To open this email.
There you go. There you go.
I would love to see that. That's great.
It'll be something like that. I noticed that in our church emails that we use in our email blast, if it says something like from, this is particularly from Father Yuri or something like that, we get a lot more opens too. So people respond to the authority, as they should.
Okay, well, before Bryce and Bert jump off, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, Satan, would you like to close with a prayer?
Sure. O Heavenly King, comforter, the Spirit of truth, who art in all places and fillest all things, treasury of good things and giver of life, come and abide in us and cleanse us from every stain and save our souls, O gracious Lord. Amen.
Amen. Bert, Bryce, thanks for your time. Elias,
Thank you, guys.
Please wait.
Okay. We'll see you guys later. Have a good evening.
Have a good one.
Catch you later.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so I'm about to post the video of the live stream from Sunday.
You want to stop the recording?
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
did you stop it?
I forgot about that.